Episode 5. Bran asks the Night King why he does that when he has the choice now. Night King shows Bran several visions. He sees the arrival of the first men over the Broken Arm, which was still a whole connection between Westeros and Essos at that time. The children of the forest who use a weirwood tree to flood the Broken Arm. Then you see a battle between the children of the forest and the first men. The White Walkers coming out of a blizzard and leading a battle against the first men and the children of the forest. The Andals who arrived with their ships in Westeros and fight against the first men. Aegon Targaryen destroying Harrenhal with 3 dragons and then with his 3 dragons against thousands of people in the battle and burning everyone. The fight between 2 dragons in the sky, probably from the Dance of the Dragons. Then you see the Mad King orders to burning alive Rickard Stark and Brandon Stark with wildfire. Brandon is tied to the neck, held tight by a noose. He strangled himself trying to save his father. Bran stops the vision and says, "You never wanted to break the curse. You want to kill people. For what? What brings you a dead Westeros?" King's Landing in the evening. The snow is falling slowly from the sky. You can see the armies of Jon, Dany, Robin Arryn and the commander of the Golden Company. They ride to King's Landing. Jon, Dany, Jaime, Tyrion, Bran, Missandei, Jorah, Sam, Gilly and their son, Lord Royce, Howland Reed, all the lords of the north, Lyanna Mormont, Lord Glover, the armies of the north, the Unsullied and the Dothraki, the commander of the Golden Company and the Golden Company continue to ride towards the city wall. Sam tells Jon that King's Landing is the last safe fortress on Westeros. If something goes wrong, Westeros is lost. Jon orders Lyanna Mormont with a few men, to bring everyone who can't fight properly to Dorne. If the Night King wins here, everyone on Westeros must flee. Gilly rides with her son to Lyanna Mormont and Robin Arryn. Sam stays and says, "I've killed one of those before. They need me here." Dany calls Gilly and says, "If you do not know where to go, travel to the Dragon Bay, where everyone is welcome looking for freedom." Gilly rides south with her son, Lyanna Mormont, Robin Arryn and a few soldiers. The rest continues southeast to King's Landing's Gate of the Gods. At the same time Jaime talks to Jon that he is sorry he could not keep his promise to Catelyn Stark. He should have saved Sansa but could not protect her. Jon tells him he knows that Jaime has crippled Bran. Jon says Bran was always good at climbing. He must have seen you with your sister. At least many believed that later. Jon forgives him since he's changed since then, noting that it's the result of the War of the Five Kings, and the best proof of how fast conflicts arise and how quickly they get out of control. Jon wants to prevent that with Dany on the Iron Throne. Jaime also notes that he has learned from Catelyn that you sometimes have to make peace with your worst enemies so that the kingdom is not in chaos. It is not about yourself but about the people you love. Jon says, "That's not true, it's always about those who can't protect themselves. The people have always been under the merciless ruling of the lords, but when all this is over, this will be no more." Dany rides alongside Jon and says, "I know you want to trust Cersei, but I do not think she'll just let us and our troops into their city." Jon says, "I can use Drogon to fly to the Red Keep and talk to her." Jaime says, "No, I know her and I know how she thinks. Jon, bring me to her with this dragon. I'll talk reason into her." Jon agrees. Drogon lands on Dany's command next to the troops. Ghost runs faster to be next to Sam. Jaime is having a farewell conversation with Tyrion in case something goes wrong. Tyrion says, "You know that. There is always something wrong." He smiles and Jaime rides with Jon to Drogon. Jon and Jaime get on Drogon and both fly over the city walls. Cersei sits on the Iron Throne. The Mountain and Littlefinger are standing next to her. A messenger arrives at Cersei, stops in front of the stairs and says the King of the North and the Targaryen girl are here with their troops. The Golden Company is with them and with the Lannister troops. I'm supposed to tell you that the City Watch is leaving them in. Cersei gets angry and says, "Why did you let them in?" The messenger is intimidated and says, "Your brother arranged it that way." "I'm sorry," Cersei says furiously. "Are you a traitor?" "Want me?" Littlefinger interrupts her. "My queen, if you allow, this man did not make that decision, he just told us about it." Cersei becomes quieter. Littlefinger says, "You say your brother is on our side?" Cersei gets angry and says yes. "This little monster has promised me. He will never betray me." Cersei starts crying and says softly, "Tyrion and Jaime, they only left me to help." Littlefinger says Jaime has attacked the Golden Company with the Lannister soldiers. "And if Tyrion wants to help you, why are your enemies, all your enemies, in the city?" Cersei gets angry again. "Tyrion already has a plan, he always has." Littlefinger says, "Our only advantage over this great army was these city walls. Thanks to Tyrion our enemies are now within the walls." Cersei thinks and gets sad, just like with Myrcella. He said he would protect her and now she's dead. He betrayed me. All betray me. She becomes clear again and talks to the messenger. "If Tyrion gives you a plan to fight our enemies, execute him. If not, kill everyone. Now my enemies are here and I can destroy them with one strike. But let Jaime live, he is important." Littlefinger looks at the messenger expectantly and the messenger leaves. Littlefinger says a bit anxious, "Don't you want to wait and see what they have to say?" The messenger stops anxiously. Cersei yells, "No. All traitors must die an agonizing death. I will not believe lies anymore. These White Walkers cannot exist at all." The messenger goes on fast. Littlefinger looks pissed. The messenger walks out of the throne room down the hall. He walks around the corner where there are no soldiers. The Hound stands in front of the messenger and says, "Sorry, but you have a bad luck today." The Hound kills the messenger. On the Red Keep a soldier stands on the inner castle wall. He looks anxiously into the sky. Drogon flies over this soldier and lands on a large open space in front of the Red Keep. The soldiers direct their giant crossbows from castle walls to Drogon. Archers are in position for Drogon. Jon and Jaime get off. Drogon growls but stays calm. Jaime screams, "Stop!" The soldiers react to Jaime in surprise. The foremost soldier screams, "Take down the bows." The soldier anxiously asks Jaime what's going on. Then he looks anxiously at Drogon. Jon calms down Drogon and Jaime says, "I have to talk to your queen." The soldier screams, "Stay back." Jon stops and looks confused. He asks, "What's going on here?" The White Walkers are already on their way and their army may be even bigger now than ever before. And they have a dragon. We must act. The soldier points his bow at Jon and says, "Our queen has told us about your lies. You want to kill her and ruin the land like the Mad King." Jon slowly goes back to Drogon. Jaime angrily approaches the soldier and says, "Take down the bow. My sister has agreed to an agreement and promised to beat the army of the dead and let the war rest until then. And now take down the bow and let us getting through the queen." The soldier becomes more and more nervous and loses his nerve when Jaime gets too close. He shoots at Jaime and shouts, "Kill them." The situation escalates and Drogon is hit in the back by a huge crossbow arrow. Jon yells at Jaime, run to your sister and finish this. Jaime runs into the Red Keep. Jon wants to pull the arrow from Drogon's back, but Drogon moves and the arrow falls out. Drogon roars angrily and spits fire at the giant crossbow. He turns angrily to the other giant crossbow and yells at the soldier behind. The soldier gets scared and runs away. Dany, Tyrion, Podrick, Bran, Missandei, Jorah, Sam, Lord Royce, Howland Reed, Lord Glover, Brian of Tarth, Tormund, the armies of the north, the Unsullied and the Dothraki, the commander of the Golden Company and the Golden Company are led by the city guards through the Gate of the Gods. Dany and Jorah look at the city watch suspiciously. The first are behind the wall. Dany hears Drogon roar. Missandei asks Dany what's with her, because she has not heard anything. The city watch leader approaches Dany and her companions and asks, "Who can I talk to?" Dany and the commander of the Golden Company step forward. Dany looks expectantly at the commander. He takes another step back and says, "Guess she has the command." Dany says to the city guard, "I have to talk to your queen. We have to prepare for the battle against White Walkers." The leader of the city watch looks scared and says, "So it's true, I'll guide you to the queen." Tyrion steps forward and says, "I need something to eat. We have not eaten since we left Harrenhal." The leader of the city watch hesitates, but then realizes something. The leader says, "Of course, my lord." He looks at a city guard and says, "You there? Bring Tyrion and his hungry men to the nearest supply depot." The city guard says, "Yes." Tyrion just wants to leave. Then Dany says, "Why do you want to go now? We need you here if your sister falls us in the back." Tyrion tries to talk, but Dany says, "Since we were here last time, you have not said a bad word about your sister. You always defended her since the meeting with her. Before that you've warned me again and again about her and her sneaky plans." Tyrion reacts scared. Dany says, "You convinced her to help us. Stay with us now and help me get this over with your sister." Tyrion looks at the leader of the city guard for a moment, then looks thoughtfully to the floor. Howland Reed steps forward and says, "I'm leading the hungry soldiers with the city guard to the supply house. I'll meet you in the throne room and bring you food." Tyrion says, "All right." Dany tells the leader of the city guard, "Bring the lord to the supplies and lead us to Cersei." The leader agrees and a member of the city guard leads Howland and his troops to the right along the wall within the city. Dany looks at Tyrion suspiciously. Jorah looks at the leader of the city guard. He looks around and sees a boy whispering something to the commander of the Golden Company. Jorah asks him, "Hey." Dany looks back. Brian looks worried and grabs her sword. Tyrion is about to go to the leader. Dany tells him, "Something's wrong here, Tyrion. I think you underestimated your sister." Tyrion stops and turns to Dany. He agrees. He hears Drogon roar from a distance and reacts anxiously. Jorah pulls his sword and yells at the commander, "What does that mean? What did he tell you?" The commander pulls his sword and roars, "Our word is good as gold." Brian pulls her sword and faces Dany. Jorah yells, "Everyone in formation." The Golden Company soldiers pull their weapons and roar beneath the gold, the bitter steel. The soldiers begin to kill all surrounding soldiers. The remaining soldiers pull their swords and a chaotic battle begins in the narrow streets and the Gate of the Gods. A war elephant outside the city walls gets nervous and runs into this mess. He storms through the Gate of the Gods against a building. The armies that are still outside the walls gather on the command of Lord Glover in a formation. The Dothraki are riding wild around the formation. Within the walls, Jorah fights against the commander of the Golden Company. Through the crowd in the streets the fight is interrupted. Jorah looks to Dany and the others. They are protected by Brian, Tormund and soldiers. Tyrion is protected by Bran. He looks desperately at the members of the City Watch. The leader of the City Watch consults in this chaos with Lord Royce. Lord Royce shouts, "The City Watch must fall into the city." The leader of the City Watch stabs Lord Royce in the back and screams, "Attack the traitors from the north." The City Watch gets in position against the soldiers of the north. The Northmen do not notice that in this mess. Jorah presses herself to Tyrion and asks him loud what they should do now. Tyrion says they should look for cover in buildings and wait until Jaime talk with Cersei. Dany says no. "We will not let our men to die until your sister has decided to be merciful." That's what they planned. Tyrion says he doubts that. Dany says they need to find a big place where Drogon can help without hurting their own soldiers. Sam suggests the spot where the September of Baelor used to be. His own soldiers continue to push back and Dany and her people are also pushed back by it. Ghost goes through and Sam tries to hold him back because he wants to attack his own men. Sam and Ghost are here in a narrow street. Jorah is separated from Dany and her group. He sees the Gate of the Gods. There's room to come in. He calls to Dany, "I support the Unsullied." Dany hears it and sees Jorah as he does to fight through the Gate of the Gods. Jaime storms into the throne room and talks aloud with Cersei, "You have to stop this right now. Your soldiers are attacking Jon and our last dragon, please." Cersei asks, "Ours?" Jaime answers quickly, "Yes, ours. And if you do nothing, our allies will soon have nothing left to protect us from the White Walkers." Cersei says they do not need these traitors and their dragons. Jaime yells at her, "What are you trying to accomplish with this?" The enemy is approaching and so far he has destroyed everything that was in his way. In all possible hells. They have an undead dragon. Cersei growls and gets angry. She starts to cry and says, "If the enemy is really unstoppable, why try to defeat him?" Jaime takes a few steps towards Cersei, says, "We still have a chance. Together we can win, but not when our best weapons are killed in front of the castle. Please, Cersei." Cersei cries and says softly, "You do not care, do you?" Jaime looks puzzled. Cersei says, "It's dead, you know, our child died again." Jaime reacts in shock and looks around her belly. He says, "This is cruel. But if we don't do anything now, we will all die." Cersei says softly, "It all become reality. All my children are dead." She screams, "This regal slut which also told me that the Targaryen bitch will get me off the throne." Jaime says worriedly, "Cersei, please forget this damn prophecy in your life once. You can decide your own life and you decide that the dead will kill us all." Cersei reflects and says to a soldier, "You there? Tell the soldiers to do whatever they can to protect their queen. Any threat can be annihilated." Jaime just starts roaring, "Damned, sister!" The mountain pulls his sword and Jaime falls silent. Cersei says, "Enough. Jaime is my brother. We can trust him." Jaime gets desperate. Bran and Tormund fight with some soldiers the way in an alley and make some space. Behind them are Tyrion, Dany and Missandei. At the back, Brian and Podrick fight against some of the pursuers. Brian kills most and Tormund is happy about that. Archers attack the soldiers from the city wall. Tyrion notices this and tells Dany that soldiers have to go up there, and cause she has the only soldiers they hear here, they are supposed to be on the city wall. Brian agrees and separates with Tormund from the group. Dany, Missandei, Tyrion, Bran and their soldiers walk down an alley to the main square where once was the September of Baelor. There, they stand in the middle of the square and form themselves around Dany and Tyrion. Tyrion says this is a dangerously open location and archers could kill them all. Dany says she trusts Drogon. He will come and save her. Drogon spits fire across the square in front of the Red Keep. Jon kills a city guard and the rest of them flee in fear. Jon yells at Drogon, "I do not know if you can understand me, but I trust Jaime to settle everything. Until then we'll have to protect your mother." Jon is running down to the city. Drogon rises in the air and flies over the city. Jon takes the big street right through the city and sees the chaos at the Gate of the Gods from afar. Jon watches as Drogon flies ahead and is then attacked by giant crossbows. No arrow hits. Drogon flies to the northern city wall and spits fire on the giant crossbows on the wall. Outside the Gate of the Gods, the Dothraki attack the Golden Company inside the Gate of the Gods. Some war elephants break through Lord Glover's formation and the combined army is split into small troops. Lord Glover is upset about the elephants and that they are worse than dragons. The Dothraki are shot down by the archers on the rooftops. Jorah comes running through the Gate of the Gods and fights to some scattered Dothraki. They give him a horse and together they ride to Lord Glover. He and his soldiers fight with their scattered soldiers, the soldiers of the Golden Company. War elephants trample again and again through the battlefield and a hail of arrows raining from above. Then Jorah realizes that the war elephants cannot distinguish friend and foe at all. Jorah orders everyone to seek cover from the arrows behind the war elephants. They should change the direction of the elephants so that they ram each other. The Dothraki ride alongside the elephants and steer them against other war elephants, Golden Company soldiers, or against the city wall. The Golden Company flees into the city and tries to lock the gate behind it. The troops of Lord Glover and Jorah fight in the gate. The Golden Company does not manage to close the gate and a bloody crowd begins inside the gate. At King's Landing Harbour, Euron stands on his ship and hears the screaming men from the battle. Euron rejoices and shouts to his men, "Hear how our enemies are slaughtered. If soldiers want to flee, we'll kill them." His men raise their swords. The men on the other ships yell for Euron. An Iron Man roars from the northeast. Euron looks in that direction and sees a fleet of ships. He says angrily, "Yara." Then he rejoices and roars, "My niece comes to avenge her dead cockless brother." He laughs and everyone prepares the ships. An Iron Man looks afraid to the north. In the distance, a blizzard slowly approaches. The Iron Man anxiously warns his allies. Yara notices the blizzard and shouts to her men, "We have to end this, otherwise we'll all be dead tomorrow." Yara is on the front of the fleet on her ship and sailing towards Euron's fleet. She tells the man at the wheel to ram right into Euron's ship. She roars, "We have to clear the way so that we can destroy the White Walkers. We will win with our dragon glass." Yara's ship approaches Euron's. Another Euron ship drives in front of Euron's and intercepts Yara's ship. Yara's ship rams in. Yara falls, gets up again and roars, "Let's go kill them." She jumps with her men on the rammed ship and fight against Euron's men. Euron is happy about the chaos. From afar you can see the ships fight with catapults and their projectiles. Many ships crash into each other. Then there is a small ship sailing to the harbor. Davos sees that and tells his men, "This is a ship from Essos." In the middle of a battle, Davos realizes something and yells to Yara, "I have to go into the city. I take some men with me." Yara kills a man on the ground and agrees to Davos. Davos fights his way free with Yara's help. Ships sink, burn and collapse. Euron wants to stop Davos' ship, but Yara occupies Euron's ship. Davos, moored at the harbor, gets off the ship and runs with his men to the gate of the city walls. A soldier asks Davos why they have to leave the battle. Davos answers this ship is not here without reason. It's from Volantis, but if it comes during a battle, it does not mean anything good. The soldier asks Davos what's so bad about Volantis. Davos says not Volantis, the woman who comes from there. She is the only one who would come here during a battle would. Davos walks through the streets with his soldiers and see a woman in a red robe. Some city guards follow her. The city guard call Melisandre and catch her. They grab her and try to get her robe off. Melisandre warns them about it, but they laugh at her. The city guard turns Melisandre over and grabs her against the wall. He pulls her robe up and talks into her ear. Now I finally get my reward. He hears a scream behind and leaves Melisandre. Davos pulls his sword out of the city guard. One of his men kills the last of the city watch. Davos recognizes Melisandre and says, "Too bad, a little later and this reunion would have given me pleasure. What are you doing here?" Melisandre talks wistfully to him. "I do not blame you, Onion Knight, I made mistakes," but Davos interrupts her loudly. "We're at a bloody war in case you haven't noticed. Tell me what you want here. Now." Melisandre replies quickly, "The spider whispered to me. He knows of a traitor in your ranks. I think Jon Snow is in danger. I still believe the King of the North is important." Davos says, "Aegon, his name is probably Aegon Targaryen. I do not believe in your lord's visions, but as long as I think he's somehow chosen, how else could a bastard become the chosen king in the north and even the rightful king of Westeros?" Melisandre asks Davos where is the chosen one. Davos looks at her worriedly. "At the place where the September of Baelor used to be." More and more soldiers are surrounding Dany, Missandei, Tyrion, Podrick, Bran and their soldiers. Tyrion yells at Dany, "Damn it, your dragon will not come." A war elephant storms uncontrollably through an alley. He tramples down soldiers of the Golden Company and runs into the big area. Dany and her companions flee and run in the direction of the Red Keep. They flee through the streets. Here Missandei gets lost in the turmoil. Dany and the others walk to the Muddy Way, a large open area. They run on the Muddy Way and the war elephant storms out of an alley. Howland Reed and his men ride on horses across the Muddy Way and charge the elephant in his side. They stab him in the feet. Dany and her companions can escape. Howland Reed turns around the elephant into another direction, but dies. Tyrion gets desperate. Dany says finally. Drogon flies over the war elephant and spits fire on him. He burns, flees in panic and runs into an alley, breaking through the formation of his own troops. Then he breaks through the wall in Littlefinger's brothel and breaks through the floor with his tramp. The fire reaches some barrels in the underground and the wildfire explodes inside. A huge fire blast bursts from Littlefinger's brothel. Brian and Tormund fight with the allies and lead everyone to go to the city wall to help the soldiers who are outside. They get on the wall with the soldiers and kill the enemy archers. On the city wall, Tormund looks anxiously to the north. He sees the blizzard approaching. Brian notices it and says to Tormund in panic, "It's too late. They come." Tormund roars, "We have to warn the others." Brian says that will not help. "We can only do one thing now. We stop them and give King Aegon time." Tormund calls out to his allies, "Hey you dicks. I don't care which king or queen you are fighting for. The real enemy is coming, and if we continue to slaughter each other, then we are all dead." Brian looks at Tormund with fear and surprise. The soldiers who have heard Tormund listen to him and get on the city wall. They see the coming blizzard and see some White Walkers, who seemingly lead the blizzard. The soldiers are shocked. Sam and Ghost run from the enemy soldiers. They get surrounded by the city watch, but then gets rescued by his own men. Sam says that the soldiers should stay with him. He remembers the wildfire and decides to use the soldiers to find this weapon and use it against the enemy. They find a way into the underground and Sam says that they have to go under the Gate of the Gods. Ghost walks in that direction. Sam and the soldiers follow him. They come quickly into a long room full of barrels. Sam says that it has to be inflamed. A soldier logs in to place a torch. Sam, Ghost and the soldiers are running upstairs again. The soldier puts the torch in the barrel rack. He suddenly opens a lower barrel. A drop gets on the torch, it lights up and the fire reaches a barrel. It explodes inside the underground way. In front of the Gate of the Gods, the Golden Company is formed and tries to keep the armies outside. Some soldiers of the Golden Company see the approaching blizzard in the distance and react anxiously. They hear a bang and the ground explodes under the big space in front of the gate. And most of the soldiers of the Golden Company are dying. Lord Glover, Jorah and their troops can break thanks to the help of the soldiers on the city wall and the explosion through the gate. They all form within the city. Brian yells at Lord Glover and lets him know about the blizzard. Lord Glover remains with several hundred soldiers at the city walls to secure them against the coming army of the dead. Jorah goes with the rest of the troops into the city. Jon runs with drawn sword through the big road that runs through the city. He fights his way through the city and helps some allied soldiers in the fight with the city watch. With them he seeks his allies. In the street he meets the allied armies that came into the city and formed on the big road that leads through the city. Davos walks with his men and Melisandre to the muddy way. They see Missandei. She flees in front of some soldiers. One of them shoots at Missandei with an arrow and hits her arm. Davos charges to her with his men and kill their pursuers. Melisandre supplies Missandei. Davos says, "These explosions are everywhere, where are we going?" Missandei tells him where Dany is. Davos sees Drogon fly in that direction and says, "There must be someone important when the dragon is there." Dany and her companions get on horses and ride to the big street in the city. They meet Davos and Melisandre. Dany is worried about Missandei. Missandei says that she will be fine and even if not, Dany would get over her death, because she will be too busy with her child. Then she smiles at Dany and Dany is happy. She says, "You will be fine, I need you." Jon meets Ghost and Sam with their soldiers. They form against the direction of the Gate of the Gods. Sam says that the allied troops are through the gate, but the Golden Company has just scattered there. Jon and Sam hear the ice dragon roar. They are shocked. Jon says, "Then they will gather there again." Dany and her companions meet Jon on the main road. They form in the center of the city against the north. Drogon lands on the rooftops. Jorah and his troops also arrive and gets in position with their allies. At King's Landing Harbor, ships are burning on the water and the clouds of smoke obscure the view of the action. Yara fights with her men against some of Euron's men. Yara kills her enemies and jumps on Euron's ship. Euron's men fight against her, but she dodges and runs towards Euron. They begin to fight and after a long fight Yara wins. Euron is still alive and Yara holds his blade to his throat. She calls Euron's men, "This is all pointless. The real enemy is coming and there is enough chaos in the city. If we start to choose a new king of the Iron Islands now, we would be wiped out by the enemy. I pay the iron price. She wants to kill Euron, as he struggles and breaks free. He gets up again and wants to charge on Yara. One of his men beats him down and shouts for our queen. Another man hits Euron with his axe and yells for Yara. Euron bleeds and everyone yells for Yara. She roars, "Finish this and follow me into the town." In the throne room, Cersei sits on the Iron Throne. Littlefinger asks Cersei why she hears nothing more about the battle. He persuades Cersei to order some soldiers outside, to help and to report as soon as possible. Littlefinger says he will follow him and will report personally. Some soldiers leave the room and Littlefinger follow them. He looks at Jaime and smiles. Jaime gets a little angry and follows them too. The door of the hall closes and Jaime shouts at the soldiers, "You all can't be serious. Do you really want to support this madness?" The soldiers look at Jaime without saying anything. Jaime says desperately, "That would be your end, that might be the end of everything." Jaime sees the Hound going to the soldiers and he kills every soldier. Jaime wants to help the soldiers, but Littlefinger holds him from behind. The Hound kills everyone. Jaime frees himself, but Littlefinger and the Hound arise. Jaime asks why he does that. The Hound says, "You have no idea who you're talking." Jaime looks questioningly at Littlefinger. Littlefinger says, "I want to make you an offer." Jaime looks surprised. Littlefinger says, "Without you it is not possible." Jon, Dany, Sam, Davos, Jorah and all their companions and troops are in formation. Jon tells Dany to go to Cersei with Tyrion and some men. Jon knows from his own experience that at the Red Keep is hardly a soldier anymore. Jon says he knows how he wins this. Dany, Tyrion, Bran and some soldiers ride to the Red Keep. Jon sees the rest of the Golden Company with the rest of the City Watch in formation going to Jon and his allies. Everyone is looking forward to the enemy's army and are obviously nervous. Jon rides slowly as the enemies are close to his hearing. He exclaims, "I want to speak to the commander of the Golden Company." The enemies stop and the commander steps forward. Drogon roars at the enemies and the enemy soldiers are intimidated. Jon says, "None of our men have to die anymore, we've already lost enough, and being so loyal to gold for Cersei is dangerous for everyone." The commander looks at Jon aggressively and says, "You want a man-to-man fight?" He looks at Drogon, laughs and asks, "And if I lose?" "Our reputation would be destroyed. Our word would be taken as seriously as opposed to the Westerosi." Jon says, "I am a man who always keeps his word. Everyone you ask will agree. And you can believe me when I tell you that Cersei Lannister is being disempowered by several of my allies." The commander looks at Jon aggressively, looks around and agrees. He shouts out loud, "If I win, you'll kneel to Cersei Lannister, even if you've already caught her." Jon shouts, "But if I win, all men of the City Watch and the Golden Company will surrender." The commander says agreed. An exciting fight between Jon and the commander begins as the Ice Dragon roars again. Drogon responds. Jon is just about to win. Jon does not want to kill the commander, but he says, "Do it. If I do not die, you will not win." Jon says, "Yes, I know." Then he kills him and wins the fight. The Golden Company emerges. Jon sees Drogon who looks tense. Jon calls out to him, "Stop him, but do not die." Drogon flies to heaven. Jorah tells Jon about the coming enemy in the north and that Lord Glover is guarding the city walls. Jon sends Edmure Tully and the Blackfish with the Unsullied, the remaining Dothraki, the city watch and the golden company to the gate of the gods. John proclaims loudly, the wars of men are over, there will be no more battles among men on Westeros, but the true enemy will come, we must wrest the past and fight the true enemy together. The snowstorm reaches the city walls and the Whites run against it. Lord Glover orders everything they have to shoot on the dead. Drogon flies over them and burns hundreds of enemies. Tormund is looking for something in the sky in panic and says to Brian, these walls will bring nothing if the filthy king of the dead brings his dragon. That beast was going through the wall like my shit through snow. But the ice dragon does not appear. Brian asks in surprise, if he has such a powerful weapon, why is he waiting?